Right, so it's been an interesting 4 or 5 days, whatever it's been, going into the weekend. It's been just pretty hectic within the Ron Paul movement, and I guess the word hectic probably isn't even the appropriate word. I would say there's been a lot of bullshit. People not quite understanding what the campaign is doing, and quite frankly, you can add me to that list. I don't understand what the goal is. Maybe that's their goal. I don't think it is actually. A lot of people are thinking like they're doing this on purpose, like they're trying to excuse me, make Mitt Romney and his people believe that we're laying down our sword when really we're just trying to get them to lay down theirs. I don't know about that. I mean, because the problem is, and this is something I have a hard time relating to people within the movement, because, I mean, quite frankly, people within the movement, a lot of them just want sunshine pumped up their ass constantly. And anytime you say anything negative, they call you a a co-intelligence operator, whatever the fuck it's called, or a troll, or a Rothschild. I don't know. That stuff just makes me laugh anymore. I get a kick out of it. I guess I don't really care about the bullshit like that. I don't care about any of that bullshit. But whenever I try to point out the fact that these things have an effect on the remaining caucuses and the remaining primaries. So when Paul didn't win Iowa, for example, and he didn't outright win New Hampshire, and then he didn't outright win Maine, all of that has an effect of stopping momentum and signaling to people in the next states to vote for someone else. Because if Ron Paul had actually won Iowa and had actually won New Hampshire, and then later on, who knows what would have happened, because suddenly he would have been seen as a viable choice as to where he was starting to become unelectable. And once that starts, people who are not full-born Ron Paul supporters like us, nutbags like us, extremists, they won't vote for him necessarily. They'll vote for someone else. Because not everyone who votes for someone like Ron Paul is going to be 100% in agreement like we are, or 90%, 95%, whatever we are. So, and that's kind of where we're at now. It's the whole, well, where are we going to get votes going forward if, half of the Republican Party thinks Ron Paul has dropped out? And that's where it kind of gets a little interesting, and I don't understand how. I mean, can he conceivably lose the remaining races and yet still get enough delegates? Yada, yada, yada. Secondarily, there's this impression we're getting that Ron Paul doesn't like how chaotic these conventions have become. And I predicted that this was going to happen months ago. And that's one of the reasons why I've really been sort of negative, hesitant to really embrace this strategy. It's sort of like fighting to get into a bathroom. And you get in there and there's a giant turd in the toilet and there's flies buzzing around and it stinks. And you're like, wait a minute, why have I been fighting to get in here? What's the point? I'm fighting over a turd. And so I guess I see what his goal is, but I guess I don't. I'm worried about the after effects. I'm worried that we're actually destroying the Republican Party as opposed to taking it over. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a positive thing, quite frankly, because I don't like the GOP and I don't like the Democratic Party. Obviously, I'm not a Democrat. So it's just kind of a weird thing. And the thing is, it's not just me who's having a hard time with it. That's what Ron Paul and Mitt Romney. But the thing is, our movement is not anything close to what Mitt Romney or Barack Obama stand for. We are diametrically opposed to people like Rick Santorum, Mitt Romney, and Newt Gingrich. We're so different that I don't see any way for us to come together and coalesce around Mitt Romney. Let me give you an example. what would Mitt Romney have to do to get our vote? And I'm speaking in terms of, we know let's say he has won the nomination. And let's say Mitt Romney made some concessions, I guess you could say. And he said that basically in his speech, in light of our economy, the debt, the deficit, the long-term debt, and the continual wars, that he pledges to only go to war with a declaration of war from the Congress as president, and that as president, he will never send covert operations or have covert operations in foreign nations in which we have never declared war on them through the Congress. Those are two things that I could start with that would, see, this is where a lot of Ron Paul supporters go fucking ballistic on me. Like, oh my God, you can't trust him. Well, we don't know that, but what is the point of what we're trying to do here? It's to convince people we're right, and to bring people over to our side, and to enlarge our message so that we can win. Now, if someone like a Mitt Romney or Barack Obama is willing to concede that as a president, they should only go to war with a declaration of war, and they won't use covert operations as a way to instigate wars. And then, of course, you have to vote for sanctions. We've gone a long way just right there in that one simple thing toward guaranteeing that we don't end up in Iraq or Afghanistan or Libya or Syria, future Syria, Iran, and North Korea, unless we all vote on it as a nation. And if we all vote on it as a nation, more than likely we won't go. It just makes it less likely we're going to have war. So, yes, there's still sanctions, but the sanctions at least have to be voted on. The president can't just, I don't think so, instigate sanctions arbitrarily. He has to go to Congress. So what this does is it limits necessarily the power of the president to declare war in a way that it's something I can support. It's something I can back. Because I would say out of everything, to me, the most important issue of today, this is where I disagree with Congressman Paul. I think he thinks monetary policy is the most important. And I think that's where he's reading his economic stuff too much. No, it's not. The immediacy of it. And I would say an audit of the Fed is nice, but it's just an audit. And if it's so important about the Fed, what can someone like a Mitt Romney do about the Fed? He can get it audited. You think he's not going to support anything like the competing currencies? One thing is because he's a wise politician. He's a whore, he's a political whore, and he knows that that's not an election issue. I mean, that's just the way it is. But the key is the wars they're our ticket, because it's a line back to where the Republican Party used to be, back when it stood for no nation building, no policing of the world, and that's where we need to go. Because as we look at our debt and our deficits, the party that gives the American people the idea that they will stop with the perpetual warfare, reduce spending and cut spending, reduce the tax burden, and those two things will help the economy, which will in turn improve our vision of the future. I would say, if I had to look at it, I would say the wars, the economy, the debt are bringing us down. But what makes it worse is when we look to the future, we don't see any way out. Why? Because people like Mitt Romney, Barack Obama, they give you the impression we're going to continue our foreign policy as is. So that means more policing of the world, more wars, and Obama and Romney don't seem to want to do any great cuts. So if we do continue the wars, and we continue on generally the same spending, maybe a little less here and there, there's no hope for the future. And I believe that that's what the American people want to see. They want those connections made between bringing the troops home, only going to war with a declaration of war, cutting spending, reducing taxes in order to stimulate the economy so that it can grow and people can flourish and do shit on their own, they will see that end path that we need. And this is one of the reasons why I wish we had a more pragmatist, libertarian left candidate who didn't get sidetracked on social issues, Rand Paul, and would focus on the issues of today, but in a libertarian mindset. If I were running a Republican, I would have attacked the wars, but in terms of republicanism, I would not go on these rants about we don't need another war. Don't say that. Say, if we need another war, then we simply need to declare it through the Congress. That's all I'm asking. Because, see, we all should know that if you have to declare it through the Congress, then more than likely it won't get through. They all know this. That's why they don't want to go through it. Secondarily, you want to force them to admit that they don't want to go to war through the proper, constitutional way. And secondly, it lets the American people know and the Republicans know that, hey, this guy's not necessarily against the war. All he's saying is if we go to war, we do it together. So, what is the one thing that a lot of people say about Ron Paul that they have completely wrong? They call him an isolationist. Well, whose fault is that? Is it their fault? I don't think it is, quite frankly. Because when Ron talks about foreign policy, he gets emotional, and sometimes he doesn't articulate exactly what he stands for. If you want to see Ron Paul respond on this issue really well, if I can find the video, I'll put it below. It's when he's actually debating Charles Krauthammer about, I think it was nuclear Iran. He goes, what if nuclear Iran gets weapons or something like that? Ron Paul says, well, we see if it's a threat. We take it to the Congress. They decide if we go to war, and I as president would go to war if they so chose. Krauthammer didn't have a shit thing to say after that. That's it. That's the end of the argument for a conservative. And that should have been his argument the entire debates. Because here's the thing. The people were dying to vote for him. A lot of Republicans were dying to vote for him. They go, well, I love his economic policy, but I don't like his foreign policy. And of course, I understand his foreign policy. They really don't, and I can't blame them because of the way it's been explained in these debates. I really can't. People are given false impressions from it. He doesn't realize how stupid people are, and they have to be spoon-fed stuff. Paul, to his credit, he gives us too much credit, and he doesn't explain things down, little baby details. So people don't understand what he's saying, and that's why we didn't win. Now, the point here going forward is, I think we're starting to make inroads. It's arduous. It's a lot of work. But I think one of the things we always have to point out to non-Ron Paul Republicans is that the same philosophy that they use in supporting limited government in terms of not intervening into the economy is the same philosophy we use in determining that the government should not intervene militarily abroad. At least without a declaration of war, which should be obvious at this point. So I think going forward, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. I mean, what can Mitt Romney do to get my vote, boy? I actually would not have a hard time voting for him if he would agree, and I know a lot of people aren't going to agree with me on this, and I don't give a shit. I'm different. I'm looking for a way for people to come to our side. And if they're willing to come to our side in agreement on some core principles, if they say, you know what, you're right, times have changed, I can't afford this policy anymore, I'm willing to go in with you, I'm going to accept them. I'm going to bring them on, and I'm going to, okay, all right, you may be a political whore, maybe we're going to wash you and get you clean. But for me, it comes down to, I would say, the wars. If we can get Mitt Romney to agree to never go to war without a declaration of war from the Congress, covert operations is very important to me. I think that needs to be covered, although it probably won't be. Because Mitt Romney has said himself he would have covert operations in Iran. Which usually you tell Republicans when they say that, you should say, well, now you're telling Iran what you would do. That's not wise. Whatever. Also, I guess, I don't know. Do we need... okay, I want a full audit of the Federal Reserve, but I don't want people to think that's like the end-all, be-all. So what if we get an audit? It's like when you take your computer in. Well, I don't do that, but when you take your computer in to figure out what's wrong with it, and you charge $70, and then they go, oh, by the way, we can't do anything with it. It's dead. Shit. I got to pay $70 now. Fuck. That's an audit to me. We're paying. They are expensive, actually, audits. They take a lot of time and resources. And then we're going to find out all this screwed up stuff. We're going to be like, crap, now what? Now, I guess then you can promote change. But I just don't know if it's worth, Mitt Romney doing something he's not comfortable with or he doesn't agree with. I would focus on the more important stuff. Maybe signing statements, get rid of those. An agreement not to increase spending or taxes. And, of course, looking to always reduce spending and to reduce government departments. And, of course, me personally, I would have to have him swear on a stack of Bibles and video record himself agreeing to this pledge. And at the end of it, you could have it say something like, if I, Willard Romney, or whatever the frick his name is, Mitt Willard Romney, do not fulfill this pledge, then I am not to be trusted ever again. And you record it, and then you play it. If he lies, if he gets out of it, if he doesn't do what's in the pledge, you use it against him. That's the only way I can figure out how I would ever vote for him, and that is we get him on video admitting to these things, that he would support these things, these pledges. What is his name? That guy, the tax, I don't remember his name. The tax advocate guy, he goes around getting these pledges from people. That's kind of what we need to do, but I would go a step further and get it on video and extrapolate the pledge. I would pick core issues where we can agree with him. And I think the key to this is, and what I was trying to get at earlier was, if Mitt Romney were to do this, it would make him a much more powerful candidate. Because he can tell the American people that if you vote for me as president, unlike President Obama, I will not go to war without getting Congress's approval. Your representatives, your senators, need to give me the authority to go to war as president. That's in our Constitution. That's what we should do. President Obama didn't do that, and he won't do that. So how do you know? We could end up in Iran. We could end up in Syria. We could end up in North Korea. Anywhere. It doesn't, because he can go to war wherever he thinks he can go to war, as long as the UN gives him the approval. I think that's an epic position for him. And then it positions him to say that in light of our debt and our deficit, we need to reduce spending, stop the warmongering. Well, maybe we wouldn't use that word. Only go to war with a declaration of war. War should be a last resort in order to reduce spending, reduce deficits, and to eventually spur the economy and to improve our outlook and our future. Pull it all together. Because I know I'm not quite as negative as I used to be about our future, but when I was, it was always that combination of the economy, the debt, the dollar, the Federal Reserve printing money, but the reason they're printing is because of the wars and the economic intervention. And it gives you this sensation that the future is screwed. There's no hope for the future. And I think that's what we really need to hit on for people. So that's pretty much it. I don't know where I'm going with this video, so that's pretty much it. See ya!